Welcome to our channel, where we share the most motivating and transformative stories. Today, you're about to hear a story that goes beyond simple success. It is a story of hardship, suffering, perseverance, and the incredible strength of refusing to quit. This is a tale of a young boy who possessed nothing, no money, no safe home, not even enough food to survive. This boy lost everything early in life, had no one to guide him, and faced hunger, isolation, and endless challenges. Yet he would not accept the destiny placed before him. He refused to surrender. For 2 years, he walked on foot, traveling 470 kilometers with no food, no shelter, and no coins in his pocket. He battled storms, starvation, and exhaustion, but he never stopped moving forward. That boy would later become the founder of one of the world's most influential luxury brands, Louis Vuitton. How did he make it happen? How did a starving, homeless child rise to create a billion-dollar legacy? How did he transform all his pain into strength and all his struggles into triumph? This entire story is real. Every hardship, every achievement, and every moment. Watch the full story if you want to understand how someone can rise from absolutely nothing to ultimate luxury. You won't regret it. This story is not only inspiring, it's also an excellent way to develop your English, thanks to immersive storytelling, rich vocabulary, and meaningful lessons from real life. Now, let's go back to the very beginning. In 1821, in a small village called Anchy in France, a poor family welcomed a newborn baby. His name was Louis Vuitton, but life did not greet him with comfort or wealth. From the moment he came into the world, his surroundings were filled with difficulty. His father, Xavier Vuitton, worked as a carpenter, creating furniture and wooden pieces with his hands. His mother, Corinne Gallard, made hats for the local women, sewing tirelessly throughout the day. Despite their constant labor, their income was barely enough to keep food on the table. Louis grew up in a tiny wooden house with a leaking roof and cold, damp floors. Winters in Anchy were harsh. Snow blanketed the village for months, and icy winds made living even harder. There was no heating, no warm bedding, and no comfortable place to sleep. The Vuitton family survived with whatever they could manage. From a young age, Louis learned that life offered him no fairness. He didn't own the toys wealthier children enjoyed. He didn't attend school like they did. Instead, he spent his childhood assisting his father, carrying heavy wooden boards, hammering nails, and sweeping sawdust off the ground. His hands became rough, his clothes were worn, and his stomach was often empty. But Louis was unlike the other children in his village. Despite having nothing, despite living in poverty, he possessed something they did not, a dream. Every day, travelers passed through the village, dressed in elegant clothing and carrying large wooden trunks and suitcases. Louis watched these travelers with deep fascination. He wondered where they were going, how far their journeys were, and who crafted the beautiful trunks they carried. He had never seen anything beyond his small village, yet his heart longed to explore the world. He was curious, eager to learn, and desperate for a life better than the one he knew. But fate showed him no kindness. When Louis was only 10 years old, his mother became ill. There were no doctors in the village, no hospitals to help her, and no medicine to ease her pain. Day after day, her condition grew worse. Then one morning, as sunlight spread across the hills, Louis's mother took her final breath. She was gone. Louis stood silently beside her grave, unable to shed a tear. His entire world collapsed in that moment. His father, devastated by grief, withdrew into himself. He no longer had the strength to care for Louis properly. For the first time, Louis felt utterly abandoned. Yet within that pain, he made a decision. He would not remain trapped in this life forever. He refused to accept a future filled with poverty. He would leave. He would pursue his dream. But how could a 13-year-old boy with no money, no horse, and barely any food travel to Paris? the city he dreamed of, which was 470 kilometers away. It seemed impossible, or perhaps not. One evening, as the rest of the village prepared to sleep, Lewis packed a small bag. He had no map, no guide, no proper supplies, only his dream to drive him forward. He said nothing to his father and didn't say goodbye to anyone. Before sunrise, before anyone could question him or stop him, Lewis stepped onto the long road leading to Paris. He had no idea what challenges awaited him. He had no plan for survival. But he knew one thing for certain. He could not remain where he was. He walked for hours, then days, then weeks. His feet blistered, his legs weakened, and his entire body ached. Sometimes strangers offered him food out of kindness. Other times he went to sleep starving, curling beneath trees with his bag as a pillow. He crossed forests, climbed hills, and passed through unfamiliar villages. To earn food, he worked temporarily on farms and in small settlements, trading labor for a meal. Rain drenched him, winter wind stung his skin, and hunger followed him constantly. But he never turned back. He felt exhausted. He felt desperate. Yet he stayed determined. After 2 long years of walking, struggling, and surviving on pure willpower, Lewis finally reached Paris. But the city was nothing like the magical place he had imagined. Paris was vast, crowded with people, and filled with the noise of carts and horses rushing along the streets. Markets overflowed with food and luxury goods, things Lewis had never seen in his poor village. The smell of fresh bread, roasted coffee, and perfume filled the air. But Paris had a darker side, too. The streets were littered with beggars, thieves, and workers who barely earned enough to live. The city was harsh to the poor. Lewis had nothing. No roof over his head, no family to stay with, no coins in his pockets. He stood at the edge of the city, exhausted to the point of collapse. His clothes were torn, his feet bleeding, his stomach empty. For the first time in 2 years, fear crept into him. Where would he sleep? How would he find food? His first night in Paris was the most difficult of all. He found an abandoned wooden cart near a bakery and crawled inside for shelter. He clutched his small bag tightly and tried to sleep while the noisy streets carried on around him. Horses clattered over cobblestones, strangers shouted and laughed, and rats scurried about searching for scraps. But Lewis was too tired to care. He closed his eyes and endured the cold wind. The next morning, forced Lewis to wake early. He watched wealthy men and women enter bakeries, buying warm golden loaves and buttery pastries. The smell alone made his stomach twist painfully. He had no other option. He needed a job. Lewis went from shop to shop, asking if anyone would hire him. But each time, the answer was identical. No experience, no connections, no job, no food. Paris offered no mercy to a boy who had nothing. Days passed, and Lewis grew weaker. He survived on scraps taken from the marketplace. Pieces of bread dropped on the ground, leftovers thrown away at closing time. His body ached, his clothes grew dirtier, and he felt more alone than ever. Still, he refused to give up. One evening, as the sun lowered behind the rooftops, Lewis noticed a man struggling to lift a large wooden trunk into a workshop. Without hesitation, Lewis rushed forward and grabbed the opposite side of the trunk. The man looked startled but didn't stop him. Together, they carried it inside. The workshop amazed Lewis instantly. Trunks of every shape and size filled the walls, some wrapped in leather, others decorated with brass fittings and initials. This was one of the finest trunk-making shops in Paris. The shop's owner, Monsieur Marichal, observed Lewis with sharp, discerning eyes. "You're strong for someone your age," he remarked. "What's your name?" "Louis Vuitton, sir," he answered. "And what do you want?" Lewis inhaled, gathering courage. This was his chance. "I want to work," he said. Marichal raised an eyebrow. "Do you know how to make trunks?" Lewis hesitated. No, sir, but I can learn. The old man let out a short laugh. Everyone says that, but not everyone can handle the hard work. Lewis felt his stomach tighten. He couldn't afford to lose this opportunity. Give me a chance, he insisted. I will work harder than anyone else. A brief silence fell. Then Marichal nodded. Very well. You may start tomorrow, but don't expect payment yet. You work, you learn, and only if you prove yourself will we discuss money. Lewis bowed gratefully. He had finally secured a place to work. But this was merely the beginning. The next morning, Lewis arrived before sunrise. The workshop was cold, and the smell of fresh wood and glue filled the air. Tools lay scattered across tables, hammers, saws, chisels, and needles used for stitching leather. Lewis's initial tasks were simple. Sweep floors, organize tools, and clean after the craftsmen. At first, he felt no disappointment. Just having a roof overhead and being inside a workshop was enough. But weeks passed, and he remained assigned to basic chores. Deep inside, he wanted more. He wanted to build, to create. One night, after the workshop emptied, Lewis stayed behind. He picked up a small wooden piece and began practicing what he had observed. He cut, hammered, carved, and stitched, imitating the movements he had memorized throughout the day. The following morning, Marichal discovered the piece. He examined it carefully, noting the clean edges and careful stitching. "Did you make this?" he asked. Lewis nodded nervously. Marichal didn't smile, but he also didn't scold him. "From now on, stay after work. I will teach you." That evening marked a turning point. Lewis worked harder than ever before. He learned how to choose the right wood, how to shape panels correctly, how to sew leather with precision. He watched the master craftsman for hours, absorbing everything like a sponge. Days turned into months, and months into years. Lewis was no longer just an assistant. He was becoming a true craftsman. People began to notice. By the time he turned 20, his hands were no longer those of a poor village boy. They were the hands of a skilled artisan. He worked faster than others, with greater accuracy and with more creativity. Soon, wealthy customers began making special requests. "I want my trunk made by Vuitton. He's the finest trunk maker in Paris." Lewis was no longer just another worker. He was becoming valuable. As his reputation grew, so did the trust of his clients. Lewis treated every trunk as if it were a masterpiece. He sanded each panel with care, inspected every seam, and polished every metal fitting until it shined. His dedication made him stand out in a city full of craftsmen. But the true turning point in his life came in an unexpected way. One afternoon, a luxurious carriage stopped in front of the workshop. A woman stepped out, elegant, confident, and clearly someone of high status. Her presence made everyone in the shop fall silent. She was none other than Eugénie de Montijo, the wife of Napoleon III, the Empress of France. She needed someone talented to craft her personal travel trunks and take care of her luggage needs. Marichal presented his best workers, but the Empress's eyes rested on Lewis. Something about his confidence, his silence, and the precision of his hands convinced her. "I want him," she said, pointing at Lewis. Those few words changed everything. Lewis became the personal trunk maker to the Empress. And in France, when you earn the trust of the Empress, you gain the trust of the entire aristocracy. Suddenly, everyone wanted a trunk made by Louis Vuitton. Dukes, duchesses, wealthy merchants, and travelers from across Europe. His life was finally improving. But Lewis was not satisfied. He didn't want to work for someone else forever. He wanted his own workshop, his own creations, his own legacy. In 1854, after saving every coin he earned for years, Lewis made a bold move. He opened his own store in Paris. A sign above the entrance read, "Louis Vuitton, Trunks and Packing." His shop was small, but it represented freedom. It represented everything he had fought for. Paris quickly took notice of his innovative ideas. At the time, most trunks had rounded tops so that rainwater would slide off. But Louis looked at them differently. He asked himself a simple question: what if trunks could be stacked? And just like that, he invented the world's first flat-topped, rectangular trunk. It was easier to store, easier to ship, and far more practical. People loved it. Orders poured in. His designs introduced a new era of travel luxury. However, when success appears, challenges often follow. Competitors started copying his designs. Some even attempted to steal his clients. But Louis remained unshaken. He believed in the power of work, precision, and originality. Then disaster struck. In 1871, during the Franco-Prussian War, chaos spread across Paris. Louis's workshop was damaged, his materials were stolen, and business nearly collapsed. Once again, Louis found himself standing on the edge of ruin. He was no stranger to hardship, but this time he had a family to support, workers to pay, and a name to protect. Instead of giving up, he made a decision that shocked everyone. He relocated and rebuilt his workshop from the ground up. He invested everything he had left and created an even better facility in Asnières. He bought new tools, hired skilled craftsmen, and introduced new designs. Soon after, he introduced something revolutionary, a canvas pattern designed to prevent counterfeiting. It was stylish, durable, and instantly recognizable. His brand finally had its own identity, a unique mark that no competitor could duplicate. Louis understood something powerful. When the world copies you, innovate again. With each setback, he rose higher. With each challenge, he pushed harder. His business expanded. His name spread across Europe, and his trunks became symbols of elegance, quality, and prestige. Travelers, explorers, and aristocrats trusted only one man with their belongings: Louis Vuitton. By the time Louis reached his later years, his creations were no longer simple luggage items. They were objects of desire, symbols of refinement, and proof of exquisite craftsmanship. But the greatest legacy he built was not a product. It was something far more enduring, a standard of excellence that would survive long after him. Louis had a son named Georges, a bright young man who grew up watching his father work endlessly, measuring, cutting, stitching, perfecting every detail. Georges admired his father deeply. He saw the struggles Louis endured, the sacrifices he made, and the dedication he poured into every trunk. When Louis grew older, it became clear that Georges would continue the family craft. Before taking over, he trained under Louis, learning not only technique but philosophy. Quality first. Always. In 1892, after decades of tireless work, Louis Vuitton passed away. News of his death spread across Paris, and many of his loyal customers mourned the loss of a man who turned luggage into art. Georges, still grieving, stepped forward to continue the business. But instead of simply maintaining what his father had built, Georges wanted to elevate the brand even further. He believed the world had not yet seen the full potential of his father's vision. So he began expanding internationally. He introduced the now iconic LV monogram canvas, a design featuring flowers, stars, and the initials LV. This pattern became a symbol not only of the company, but also of Louis's legacy, representing craftsmanship, durability, and timeless style. It was almost as if he had found a way to keep his father's name alive forever. Under Georges' leadership, Louis Vuitton transformed from a respected French workshop into a global luxury house. Stores opened across Europe and beyond. Wealthy travelers demanded Vuitton trunks for their long voyages on steamships, trains, and later, automobiles. What began as one boy's dream, born in poverty, shaped through hardship, and refined through relentless effort, became a worldwide phenomenon. But before the fame, before the success, before the monogram, there was simply Louis, A hungry child with torn clothes, a teenager walking 470 kilometers on foot, a young man sleeping in abandoned carts, an apprentice staying late to practice alone, a craftsman who worked with absolute precision, a visionary who refused to quit. Louis Vuitton's story is a reminder that greatness does not come from comfort. It comes from surviving the storms life sends your way and choosing, again and again, not to break. His entire life carried one powerful message. Your beginnings do not define your future. Your decisions do. Louis decided to walk toward a better life. Even when it nearly destroyed him, he decided to learn. Even when no one believed in him, he decided to create, innovate, and persist, even when everything around him failed. And because he chose not to stop, his name is now known around the world, carried not only on trunks, but on bags, clothing, jewelry, and accessories that symbolize luxury and distinction. His journey shows that dreams born in the darkest places can shine the brightest. It teaches us that discipline matters more than luck, that persistence matters more than talent, and that the human spirit is capable of far more than we imagine. Whenever you see the initials LV, remember, they are more than a brand. They represent courage, resilience, and the unbreakable will of a boy who refused to surrender to the life he was given. Even long after Louis's passing, his influence continued to shape the company's direction. The principles he lived by, precision, originality, and unwavering commitment, became a foundation upon which future generations built. His story inspired not only craftsmen, but entrepreneurs, designers, and dreamers across the world. As decades passed, the brand evolved with the changing times. New materials were introduced, new models were created, and new ideas took root. But the core remained the same. Every piece had to reflect excellence. Louis had set the bar high, and every person who joined the company understood that maintaining the standard was not optional. It was essential. Georges continued to push boundaries. He realized that the world was moving faster, and travel was becoming not just a luxury, but a way of life. People crossed oceans, continents, and borders more frequently than ever before. And with every journey, they needed luggage that was durable, practical, and stylish. So Georges innovated once again. He designed locks that were nearly impossible to pick, ensuring safety for valuable belongings. He improved the durability of canvas materials, making them resistant to wear, water, and time. And he expanded the product range far beyond trunks, introducing bags, accessories, and travel items for every type of traveler. The world embraced the brand. From royalty to artists, from explorers to businessmen, everyone recognized the elegance Louis Vuitton represented. But the true magic of the brand was not in its fame. It was in its philosophy. Each piece carried a story. Each stitch reflected discipline. Each design honored the vision of the boy who once walked miles barefoot, hungry and unnoticed. When Georges passed leadership to the next generation, the legacy continued. The Vuitton family maintained its traditions while adapting to modern trends. They collaborated with talented designers, expanded into fashion, and introduced new collections that blended practicality with style. The company opened stores in major cities, London, New York, Tokyo, and many more. Each new location brought more people into contact with Louis's vision. And as the world changed, the brand evolved gracefully. It was no longer just about travel trunks. It was about fashion, art, and cultural influence. Still, behind the glamorous storefronts and polished displays, the underlying MES. Sage stayed the same. Luxury is not about wealth. It is about craftsmanship, detail, and devotion. Louis understood this long before the world recognized it. He believed that true value came from work done with heart. And even though he began his life surrounded by difficulty, the discipline he cultivated guided him toward mastery. Today, Louis Vuitton stands not only as a brand, but as a symbol of what relentless effort can achieve. The company collaborates with visionary artists, releases limited collections, and continues to expand into new forms of creative expression. Yet every project carries echoes of the past, echoes of the boy who dreamed far beyond his circumstances. People often see the logo and think of status, but those who know the story see something deeper: the triumph of perseverance over hardship, the victory of ambition over limitations, and the power of refusing to give up. Every great empire starts with a single decision. Louis made his when he left his village, when he walked for 2 years across France, when he knocked on workshop doors asking for work, and when he stayed late to practice what others would never bother to learn. These decisions shaped his future and, eventually, reshaped the world of luxury. As the years moved forward, the Louis Vuitton name became woven into the fabric of global culture. Celebrities, leaders, creators, and travelers all embraced the brand, not only for its elegance, but for the meaning behind it. People carried more than a bag. They carried a legacy. But despite the fame, the company never lost sight of its origins. Within the workshops, artisans still practice the same careful techniques Louis once learned as a young apprentice. They measured with precision, stitched with patience, and inspected every detail with the same discipline he demanded. Each craftsman understood that they were not merely producing items for sale. They were continuing a story. They were honoring a man who had walked through unimaginable struggle to build a name that would outlive him. As the brand expanded into fashion, runway shows introduced new silhouettes, materials, and innovations. Designers brought fresh ideas, bold patterns, artistic collaborations, and modern interpretations of classic models. Yet the spirit of Louis's original craftsmanship remained constant. Innovation did not replace tradition. Instead, it grew from it. The monogram that George introduced evolved as well. Artists from around the world reimagined it, transforming it into vibrant murals, abstract art, and collectible pieces. This ability to adapt, to stay relevant while honoring history, was what kept the brand strong through changing decades. But beneath all the glamour, something profound persisted. The story of a boy who refused to give up. His journey remained a guiding force, inspiring the company and its admirers alike. Whenever someone achieved success through perseverance, whenever someone rose beyond their beginnings, people compared their journey to Louis's. His life became a metaphor for the power of persistence. The world saw the luxurious storefronts and elegant designs, but behind each one stood years of dedication and generations of work. The Vuitton family ensured that Louis's values were passed down like a treasure. And as new leaders took over, the mission remained clear: push boundaries, respect craftsmanship, and never compromise quality. The brand endured wars, economic crises, cultural shifts, and competition. But nothing shook its identity. It continued to evolve, always forward, always higher. Today, Louis Vuitton represents much more than fashion. It represents endurance. It represents the journey from obscurity to greatness. It shows that no matter how difficult beginning may be, the future is shaped by courage, discipline, and a willingness to go further than anyone expects. People often dream of success, but underestimate the effort it requires. Louis's life reminds us that true achievement demands sacrifice. It demands long nights, quiet discipline, and the strength to keep going even when no one believes in you. His legacy became a living symbol of possibility. Many look at the LV logo and think of wealth, but beneath that symbol lies something far more powerful. The story of a young boy who had nothing, no comfort, no opportunity, no support, and transformed his life through pure determination. Louis proved that you don't need perfect conditions to achieve something extraordinary. You need vision. You need resilience. And you need the courage to take the first step, even when the path is filled with uncertainty. The company he founded continues to inspire millions worldwide. And every time someone chooses a Louis Vuitton piece, they are choosing, knowingly or unknowingly, to carry a fragment of that incredible journey. The story of Louis Vuitton reaches its conclusion not with an ending, but with a continuation. His legacy lives in every workshop, every design, every stitch that carries his name. It thrives in the hands of artisans who still shape materials with the same dedication he once showed as a poor young apprentice. His journey reminds us that greatness is never accidental. It is built day by day through choices that demand discipline and sacrifice. Louis could have surrendered 1,000 times. He could have chosen comfort over hardship, safety over ambition, or familiarity over the unknown. But he did not. He chose a difficult road, and because of that, he created a path for generations that followed. His story teaches us that your circumstances do not control your destiny. You may start with nothing, as he did. You may struggle, as he did. But if you continue moving forward, if you refuse to stop, if you commit yourself to excellence, your life can transform in ways you never imagined. Today, Louis Vuitton stands as one of the most recognized luxury brands in the world. Its influence reaches far beyond fashion. It touches art, culture, design, and global creativity. The LV monogram has become a symbol of prestige, but also of perseverance. Behind every collection, every collaboration, every new store that opens, stands a spirit of Louis, a vision built from nothing, shaped by hardship, and elevated through resilience. People admire the beauty of the products, the smooth leather, the precise stitching, the timeless silhouettes, but they often overlook the story behind them. Yet it is that story that gives the brand its soul. Louis's life is a reminder that even when you have no resources, you still have the power to choose how you respond to your challenges. You still have the ability to learn, to grow, to work, and to dream. His journey from hunger to global recognition shows that strength comes from perseverance, not privilege. It shows that the human spirit, when determined, is capable of remarkable transformation. So when you hear the name Louis Vuitton, remember the truth behind it. A boy who walked nearly 500 kilometers without food, who slept on streets and worked tirelessly, who trained his hands to create beauty from raw materials, and who built a legacy that outlived him. Remember the message his life carries, that dreams are not meant to stay dreams. They are meant to be pursued. Louis pursued his with everything he had. And because of that, millions of people around the world know his name. His story continues to inspire anyone who begins life with nothing and still dares to hope. His name has become a beacon for those who believe that discipline, effort, and dedication can take them further than circumstance ever could. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: the world may doubt you, ignore you, or underestimate you, but as long as you keep moving forward, it cannot stop you. Louis Vuitton's life stands as proof. He refused to accept defeat, and because of that, he transcended the limits of poverty and built a global empire. The boy from a small village, who once had no food, no home, and no future, created something eternal, a legacy carried in the hands of travelers, dreamers, and creators across the globe, a reminder that even the humblest beginnings can lead to extraordinary heights, a symbol of what happens when a person chooses perseverance over surrender. Louis's journey does not simply inspire, it challenges us. It asks us to look at our own lives, our excuses, our fears, and question whether they're stronger than our dreams. And his story whispers the answer. If you could rise from nothing, what might you accomplish if you refuse to stop?